Today, is lending up or is lending down? Hello again, it's Martin North from Digital Finance Analytics. Welcome to our latest post covering finance and problem news with a distinctively Australian flavour. Today I'm going to discuss the latest data from the Australian Bureau of Statistics relating to finance in Australia. But before I start, just a quick reminder, if you'd like to support our work, you can do so by making a one-off payment via PayPal, here is the link, or join our Patreon program, where you can support us on an ongoing basis and also get access to additional content. Again, here is the link, and both links are in the comments below. Now, a couple of weeks ago, the RBA released the stock data relating to housing finance in Australia, and we saw a continued fall in 12 months annualised terms. But now, the ABS has released their latest data, entitled Lending to Households and Businesses, for February 2019. And this is really a flow analysis. In other words, it's looking at the new loan data going through the system. And at a high level, they said that lending to households fell in the month relative to the previous month and is now 15% lower than a year ago. Now, they also include seasonally adjusted data, which tries to take into account some of the changes relating to things like holidays and the other dynamics through the year. So the question is, which data is the most accurate? Well, I've consistently used the trend data because trend data tries to iron out some of the bumps month on month. So our analysis is going to focus on that. Now, it's interesting that quite a few of the commentators decided to pick up the seasonally adjusted data and argued that there was evidence that home lending was now on the rise and therefore all would be well and home prices would start to recover pretty soon. I think that probably is misreading the data. And to explain why, I'm going to show you some more detailed analysis that we've done on this data. I think it's also worth saying that this data series is a new set from the ABS, so we're just getting to grips with the new data series and how to analyse it. So the first thing I'm going to look at is the annualised trend loan flows to February 2019. So remember, we're looking at loan flows and we're looking at what's happened over the last 12 months. So we can see that owner-occupied loan flows are 14.2% lower than a year ago. Investment lending is down 28.9% from 12 months back. Personal finance is also down around 15%. And all household lending is down 17.9% year over year. And business lending is down 10.2% year over year. So there is very little evidence here to suggest anything other than continual slowing of the economy as lending decreases. Now, we can also look at this in monthly trend loan flow terms. And the first thing to notice is that owner-occupied lending fell 1% last month, but you can see that the trajectory has turned a little from October-November, and you could argue that it's going to continue, maybe, into positive territory, but who knows. Investment lending is down 2.3% compared with last month, and you can see has come off its lows, but is still pretty constrained. Personal finance continues to slide just a little lower and is in negative territory. And all household lending is down 1.2% this month compared with last month and is just taking a little turn up. Business lending is down 1.8% compared with last month and again is moving a little higher relative to December, but is still in negative territory. So I think you can interpret this as saying there is a small improvement, but not a dramatic improvement, And nothing here to suggest that things are going to fundamentally turn around and that the credit impulse is going to start getting quicker, and that's going to force house prices higher. We can also look at the annualized lending flows by type. And again, we're using the trend data. So let's start with construction. So owner-occupied construction is down 7.4% compared with a year ago. And you can see it's just moving a little higher, but still in negative territory. So it was more than 10% down in November and December. The purchase of new properties, however, is down 27.7% and continues to head south. Now, that could be one of two things. One, less people buying new, and secondly, perhaps less new construction being available to buy as new starts are coming off and construction of existing property is being slowed by a number of developers. That 27.7% is a very significant number in my book and has wider implications for the economy. The purchase of existing owner-occupied properties fell 16.6% compared with this time last year. The owner-occupied refinances fell 8.4% compared with 12 months ago. And you can see that there was quite a significant rise through last year. But now the momentum has ebbed away. And this is the investment lending, excluding the refinancing. So this is new investment loans. And you can see there that the flows are down more than 30.9% compared with a year ago. So if you want any evidence at all of a slowing market for investment properties, you can see there clearly in the investment lending data. And we can also look at the investment refinances, and they are down too as well. So this would tell us that the investment sector is still very weak. So now let's look at the trend lending flows by type to February on a monthly basis. And here you can see that owner-occupied construction is 0.8% from last month and is heading more positive probably from this point. But the purchase of new owner-occupied properties is down 2.9% and shows only a very small bounce relative to last month or two. The purchase of existing owner-occupied property is down 1.2%, but is heading slightly towards zero. And owner-occupied refinancing is just a little higher. Investment excluding refinancing is also moving up a little, but from a very low level, and it was down 2.2% over the last month. And investment refinancing is also significantly down now. So that tells us that many of those people who are perhaps considering refinancing their investment property have discovered that they can't get very good deals at the moment, which is what we're seeing in our data. Now let's look at the investor flows across the states, because clearly this is going to be quite interesting when it tells us where the pressure points are. So we start with New South Wales. And over the last year, New South Wales, for investment purposes, is down 33.7%. Victoria is down 31.4% over the same period, 12 months. Next comes Queensland, which is still in negative territory. South Australia, which is still in negative territory. Western Australia, which is 39% lower than 12 months ago, one of the reasons why the Western Australian property market is so weak. Tasmania is falling by 14.2% over 12 months. The Northern Territories by around 35%. And the ACT is also in negative territory, around 20%. So on an annualized basis, we can conclude that the investment market for property is weak not just in New South Wales and Victoria, but across all states and territories in Australia. So finally now let's just turn to first-time buyers. Now this is original data, so there's no trend or seasonal adjustments made to it. So that always moves around month on month. And with that caveat, you can see that there was a small rise this last month, still under 8,000 first-time buyers bought, and still down from the peaks that we saw through 2017. In fact, 17.7% of loans were for first-time buyers, and that's actually not too bad. But remember, of course, that a few years ago we were seeing at 28 to 34% of all new loans were for first-time buyers. So this is not telling us a whole lot. Now, the other way of looking at the data, and this is the one that we produce, is that we overlay the ABS data. This is the number of first-time buyers. And again, you see that slight peak from last month, but still under 8,000. And then you add the first-time buyer investors into the mix. Now, this is from our surveys, and we're finding now a very low number of first-time buyers are buying for investment purposes. So if you combine those two, you can see that clearly the trend overall is for a decline in the number of first-time buyers who are accessing the market. Now, there are two reasons why first-time buyers are now less able to access the market. Firstly, there are tighter lending standards, which means that they need more evidence of income and more detailed costs to show that they can actually afford a mortgage. And secondly, we also know that the bank of mum and dad is now less active because more parents are concerned about the future trajectory of home prices and are less willing and able to hand equity down to their kids. So my expectation is that the first-time buyer numbers will continue to weaken over the next few months. So let's just stand back and work out what we've really seen today. Firstly, there is very little evidence of any significant recovery in lending momentum. There's a small amount of positive news in the data, but it really is still all about falls compared with a year ago. And that tells me that the credit impulse is still relatively negative. And as a result of that, home prices will continue to slide, I think, further, and pretty much in line with my expectations. And we'll be updating our scenarios in a couple of weeks. And in fact, you can watch our live stream event on the 16th of April at 8 p.m. Sydney time to get the latest on our scenarios. And you can even ask me a question either in the live chat or beforehand via our blog. The links are below. But the bottom line is this. There is not much here to suggest other than continued weakness in lending. And by the way, even if the Reserve Bank was to cut the cash rate, I don't think that would have a significant impact on these trends. So what I'd say is be cautious of those who are claiming that suddenly, magically, the whole market is turning around. Things are, as always, much more complicated in reality. I'm Martin North from Digital Finance Analytics. Many thanks for watching, and I'll talk to you again next time.